Alrighty. Hello everybody. This is Kirusho here, and now, before we do get started, let me give a brief little review. In the last part, a number of events have happened. Now, we had Deku. Deku, he was going through quite a bit of things. After getting back from his date with Pyra, he jumped directly back into his magical studies. Along with that, he had to learn Sylvan, the language of the Fae. Learn more about their history and how they do operate. Dealing with tricksters capable of stealing many aspects of who you are is dangerous, especially if you're going to be dealing with Fae royalty and the courts that do rule that land. Now, along with that, Deku started teaching Oliver a bit more about how to use magic, learning his own personal spells, and learning a new fighting style from Theodore. On top of all of that, he's been dealing with the strange dreams that have been plaguing him since he got back from Stonefen. And this, it has begun to worry Deku, because all of that has finally caught up to him. Now, it hasn't been too good for him. The last 2-3 weeks, maybe. It's been a bit concerning. Right now, we have Deku at a little over 9 months in this world. It's been another week, and he has tried to deal with his newfound situation. He's been taking that potion every other day, trying to see if he can piece together anything new from his dreams. Fact of the matter is, if he is dreaming of the Feywild, like Sir Theodore has said he is, the situation could be dire. Something wants Izuku there. And the fact that he's one of the people who's going to be dealing with the situation does not make this any better. Something reached out to him using magic. And that does have Theodore concerned for a multitude of reasons. Since he was already planned to go. And right now, it is another concern. Now, as I said before, another week has passed, and Izuku, during this time, he's been doing quite a bit. And we do have right now, Deku, he does stand there. He drank the potion last night, and this morning, he has begun his training again. He feels better, more refreshed than yesterday. And right now, he does still practice his newfound technique. It's been a little strange. Moving differently. Trying to dance while fighting is odd. He's not using a weapon. He keeps his hands open and steady. But the idea of using wings as a weapon, it's incredible. And that's something that Deku does currently have on his mind. As right now, he does move through the courtyard, trying to figure everything out as Oliver himself does sit there trying to practice with his own magic. And this does mean a bit. They've been going at it for hours. And Oliver, while he might feel tired, he definitely has begun to see improvements with his power over the last 2 weeks. He didn't believe it at first, but after tasting power, he made a leap. And that, it makes him feel proud of himself. He might need to use some stuff to catch up, but he's still catching up. It's still progress, but in a different direction. Deku is special. He has to understand that. He may not like it, but there was a reason why he's here. And Pyra has had to tell him that before when he did confide in her. Now, currently, there is Sir Theodore, who does go to land in the courtyard and begin to walk over. Him going to turn as Deku, he does go to draw himself up and ask. Right now the aura fading around him. Exactly what's going on. A few things. We've got everything situated and sorted out. The court met yesterday, and it's as I suspected, as I feared. Your dreams are connected. I see. We already had evidence pointing to a murder, so it's not that surprising. Then again, what is surprising is your connection to all this. Your details, like I said before, I've provided all I can see, and that's it. I know. Though this will be interesting. Meeting with the court is going to be something I don't want you to do. But remember, you serve the kingdom, not them. You take orders from the king. They can only ask things of you. Got it? I got it. If all of them do act like how you say, then it'll be easy to deal with them. Yeah. Though, keep ahead. If you do fall behind again, you might not like the next technique I do show you. I got it. I'm still having trouble with demiplane. What about the other one? That's a work in progress. Still not really good at it. I mean, the other one I'm better at. I'm beginning to use it, but I'm not versed in that form of magic. It just takes a little bit more from my reserve. Got it. Come on. Him turning, beginning to walk into the castle. And Izuku, he does make his way through the area. As he does, you see some guards, some of them waving, some even going to try and divert their eyes away from Theodore. And the royal guards, they do keep themselves on high alert. The situation is dire, and if there are any attempts on anyone here, they will be ready to fight. And that's the thing people are the most worried about. The tension that has built over the situation. And right now, whenever a door does get to open, Izuku and Theodore do get to step inside. Right now, the man going to stand there. As Izuku does get to look around a room and see a ton of different people. Him looking around as his eyes go to drift from left to right. There's 2 men on the left. There's 3 women in the middle, and there's 2 men on the right. Huh. They're all finely dressed. But one of them is elvish. Okay, and that guy's an orc. Is he some sort of combat instructor? He looks like he has seen battle, but he's dressed more like a barbarian. No, that's not it. His clothes aren't cleaner. They look more... That's odd. Deku, trying to focus on that for a minute. He doesn't know much about orc culture, but what he does know of it, this doesn't fit. And that it does catch his attention. Some people begin to talk as Deku does a look up as someone does get a stand, expressing. They are Eric Hendry. Now, he must be Izuku, the hero, if they are correct. I am Izuku Midoriya. I'm sure you've all heard of me. I don't feel like I need to make introductions. Yes, well, I believe that we should. We have not wanted to disturb you for some time, though we definitely do have a situation we believe we should personally inform you of. It has not been good. Deku turning to look at the other people in the room, as the orc man does go to stand, bringing his hand up and going to hold it over his heart, before expressing, A boss. That is his name. And he is the Winter Shogun. He's earned much respect. He will treat him as such. However, the situation they do find themselves in is not good. There is a lot to go over, and he does not wish to interrupt. But introductions are in order. The man directly next to him is Edgar. The ladies who are here, they are quite simple. This is Adila, Katrina, Jeanette, and the man over there is Willie. Deku turning his head. Before the man does go to bring his hands up and tell him he prefers Mr. Bowman. It's simple. And the man does sit back down before Mr. Bowman does get a stand, expressing. Right now, the situation they do have concerns the fake court, the Seelie and the Unseelie. It's bad. If the Archfey does decide to attack them, there's a chance they may not survive. I'm aware of the situation at the most. I've been made aware of the situation for some time. I just didn't know what was happening. Theodore going to jump in. As he said before, this one's not the only one who's had strange dreams. Some people have been affected, and the rumors he's apparently heard aren't just that. Hell. Deku turning his head, looking at Theodore surprised as he does a turn, the door opening once more as Lillian does come stepping in. And Deku does stare at the princess for a second, a bit confused. Though if her grandfather is busy, it does make sense that somebody here for the crown would be here, making orders on his behalf. That is the logical conclusion. And Theodore does express, turning to Lillian and telling her she's just in time. Right now they're going over a few things, and they're still at the beginning. As he said before, the hero isn't the only one who's seen the room, not the only one who's seen the murder. However, they have not seen the person who may have caused it. It was poison of some sort, some form, and it was administered through a wine. That's what they know. What they don't know, however, is who did it, who done it, and why. Those two courts have been in each other's throats for a long time. So, the idea that one would start to kill the other would upset their natural power balance. If the runes and the wards are all still in place, it shouldn't even be possible under the Archfey's gaze. No one would want to disrupt her. And Deku does somewhat stir Lillian for a minute. Since if she's having the same dreams as him, then yeah, that's not good. And he does somewhat chime in, asking exactly what they can do. Well, tomorrow morning we're going to head out. We're going to go meet with them in person. However, that is the problem. What is? We're going there tomorrow. Are you studied up? Are you ready? I am, yes. I know enough of their language to understand it. And I get a little lost if someone goes faster, but I can brush up on it a bit more later. I'm pretty good at it. I've learned Elvish already, and my technique on it is still a little to be desired, but I know enough to get me by with Sylvish. Or Sylvan. Yeah. I'm not sure he could handle this, Theodore. What if a Fae tricks him, loses his name, or he simply gives them something without realizing? I know. That is why I've been teaching him, instructing him as to what to do. He won't make a deal. Not on purpose, correct, Izuku? I won't. But that's another thing. Are we dealing with just one kingdom? Or are we dealing with a nation? I don't know much about the Feywild other than it exists, along with some of the other realms I've heard about. But that's another thing. If she rules the Feywild, we need to know what we're dealing with. The potential enemies, the potential allies. If we've been at peace, we need to keep that peace. But that does then raise the question as to how. I see. It is an interesting proposition. Though, that is another concern of ours. We believe that we know a way, a deal we can make, but it won't be easy. Never said it would be. This is preposterous. I still don't think he should go. He might give his name by mistake. I won't. Listen, the Fae clearly want me there. I don't expect any of you to understand it, but they've been calling to me for some time. They know I exist. And as long as these dreams keep pestering me, I don't think I'm going to get answers. I don't think any of you are going to get answers just sitting there either. Are any of you going to volunteer to go with me? Deku looking around the room, stepping forwards and bringing his hands up onto the table, expressing to many of them. Right now, they're dealing with a situation they have not observed up close. Is he correct? How many of them have actually been to the Feywild? And some of them do look around at each other. The elvish woman going to raise her hand, expressing. She's been there before. However, she turned back when she realized what she did. The intensity of the place is extreme. And it is not for the faint. I see. I appreciate all of your inputs. But until you know what you're doing, what you're sending me into, or what you think you're sending me into, I'll trust the word of Theodore. I trust him more than I trust any of you. I know him. And while he might is a bit of a... Theodore gonna smile, waiting for Izuku to finish that sentence, crossing his arms and going to stare at him. For Deku does express. While Theodore does have his own manners and his own eccentric nature, that's what he's been dealing with for a while. He's used to that. He knows some people like that too. So if he does have to deal with people who do have a silver tongue, it'll be easy. Besides, with one of his skills, he's already tried thinking of a plan to trick someone. You want to trick a Fae? If possible. I know their contracts rely heavily on the word of bond. Or, yeah, that. It still works. Listen, it's going to be close, and it might not be easy. But if I can make a deal to get some time, make sure none of us are harmed, that will make it easier for us. Less complicated. Now, I expect that ends this meeting. We're going to the Feywild. We're going to handle this situation. We're going to make sure this doesn't break out into a total war before the Demon Lord decides to send another wave to attack. If that happens, we're going to be too busy at each other's throats. And I don't think anyone wants to see demons rip through this castle. Nor do the Fae want to see them rip through their realm. If this place is easy to access from our side, I assume the door goes both ways. Am I correct? People falling silent. And Theodore, he does stand there with a shit-eating grin on his face. Deku, he himself might have a silver tongue he has yet to discover. Right now, Deku going to turn, and Lillian, she does go to put her hand up in front of him as Deku does a stop, her telling him she's coming with him to the Feywild. These people have a lot to answer for. What do you mean? It is quite simple and easy. Whatever is going on, they've brought me into it. And I would rather like my sleep back. I see. I cannot stop you, Lillian. But I will try my best to make sure you are safe. I'm sure your father will order that of me. I'm sure he will trust that you will take your word on it. You alright? Sorry. Still tired. I trust he'll take your word on it. Her nodding her head as a silent dismissal. And Deku, he doesn't leave the room, leaving other people here to bicker amongst each other. Since some are quite surprised at the backbone that young man has begun to develop, especially considering that some of them have observed him from afar, and they did see him upon his arrival. That young man, he's turning into what they need. But then there's also what they've heard about. A prophecy. One that's been lost to time and discovered again, only for that cycle to rinse and repeat. If the prophecy is real, and these people do exist, then there is fear that one of them, one of the 9, he may already have fallen. And that does raise their own concerns. Because if that's true, then they don't have a paladin. And that it is the point the court does bicker upon. Since if Druso is truly dead, as they do believe, then the prophecy, it may not work. And that is another thing that the court does continue to discuss. Now, we do cut back to Deku, who currently does sit down in the courtyard, deciding that right now is the best time to take a break. Him looking through his notebook and beginning to write out a bit more plans, trying to be careful on some of the wording, trying to think about what to say. He's got to have so many situations memorized, something to do, something to say, and that it is another thing he's trying to focus on. If it works, it will work. If it doesn't, then it does not. But things could definitely be worse for him. Though, maybe he shouldn't say that. This on his mind. As right now Deku, he does go to turn his head, sensing magic, as he does go to bring his hand up and go to pull his crystal out from his pocket, holding it up and going to allow it to activate. It floating forwards as there is Ochako, who does get to try and ask him exactly if he has time to answer a question for her. Yeah, I do. I'm writing up a few deals. Why? Deals? Okay. We can come back to that in a minute. Do you have a familiar? I do, yeah. What kind? I'm trying to figure this out myself. I see. Well, that's a bit complicated. Deku turning his head, and Ochako does see that distant look, thinking that he might be looking at his system, before there is where Astoth does go to fly down, landing in Deku's lap as he's to talk about it, bringing his hand up to scratch the area on his head between his horns, talking about how this is Astoth. A dragon? sort of pseudo dragon. I didn't summon him. He kind of found me. Though he did light up my table on fire at a cafe. Are you serious? I didn't know Granala had pseudo dragons. They don't. They do pass by sometimes in migration, or when traders decide to drop them off here, hoping that they can, well, you know, exchange them for some gold. Usually, though, that isn't a good idea. People do try to collect them as familiars or as pets, though they're not easy to tame. Him looking down. And Ochako does watch the silent exchange as Deku does stare at the dragon and it does turn its head. It letting a puff of air out into Deku's face before it does lick him on the face. Him going to turn and try to wipe that off as it'll fly off, sending out a burst of wind that does make Deku gonna turn his head. And she does a small laugh, trying to cover her mouth to suppress it. And Deku does gonna tell her. There's a spell for familiar summoning. Or she could try a sigil for it. Write it down, infuse it with her mana, and see what she can do there. Right, but it exchanges a portion of your soul? It does. But you also gain an ability. You do? You kind of gain a package deal. You feel a little drained afterwards, but you're familiar, you can talk to telepathically, you gain a magical increase a bit, but that's mainly to kind of feed them if they can't get enough mana. I gained a bit more fire resistance and Deku holding up his arm. And when Ochako does see his arm literally turn into red dragon scales, she does have her eyes go wide. Her trying to think in her head about how much mana she might be able to get, how many abilities she can get as well. But Deku does bring his hand up, emphasizing the point with a pointed talon that she needs to be careful with that though. Why? Look up the story of it. I don't remember the guy's name, but he had so many familiars that he lost his soul. And that's bad. He might have been the first necromancer for all we know. But it's dangerous. One is enough. Besides, they kind of are a package deal. You can see through their eyes, hear their voice in your head, and sometimes they can be annoying, depending on how you structure your deal. If you summon one, you have to contract it, from what I know. And Theodore kept emphasizing on me about that. So I have to make a deal with an animal companion or find one that's willing to make a deal. Yeah. It's not that bad. I got lucky, but I'm not sure how your search might turn. I don't exactly know the animals in your region. Right. That's true. Thanks anyways, but what are you doing? I've got to go to the Feywild and stop a war from breaking out. That's today? Tomorrow. Have you heard back from Kirishima or Bakugo? Kirishima asked me for advice about that girl he's talking to. Mogak? Yeah. It might be going good for him. I heard, apparently, that him and her got into a fight. Is that... It's good. Apparently he confessed to her, they fought a bit, and she is happy about it. Though, Bakugo's in a different boat. What do you mean? Well, don't tell him I said this, but he's trying to learn some magic. What do you mean? He's trying to find something that can one-up your ability. He thinks that you cheated. I don't exactly know how your power works, Izuku, but it's weird. Fair. Are you gonna try and tell him about the familiars? I'm pretty sure he might know, or he's already trying to contract something powerful. Yeah. Do me a favor. What? If he does contact you, let him know I have a dragon. Just, I want you to do that. Or I can call him and show him myself. You guys really don't like each other, do you? It's a long story, like I said. I'm sure he told you about how we knew each other, but that's just from his world. He was probably worse from what he told me. And in my world, he wasn't that good either. He was an ass. And that's the honest truth. It's not easy for me. Plus, if he tries to act like he's in charge, he's going to get someone killed. I see that. He almost got a member of my party killed. Trust me, I get it, but right now, that's not what we're trying to do. He's not the conversation topic anymore. Anyways, if you're going to deal with a Fae, be careful. If they offer you powerful magics, they might want something in return. I know. Right now, though, I'm trying to figure out if I'm dealing with a literal godlike entity or just someone who's very powerful. You're dealing with another god so soon? Yeah. I'd rather not be. Good luck on your journey, Ochako. I need to get back to this. You as well. We're gonna hang up. Nizuku does look back down, trying to think about the wording and how to pull it apart. Taking a word and going to cross it out before trying to say it out loud again. Trying to see if he can find a flaw, something to abuse in that line of thinking. Think like someone who wants to deceive you. Not that hard. Think about something that can be done simply, how that can be used for a benefit. It's a strategy game. And this Deku, he does deeply start to think about before someone does go to stand there. Bring their hand onto his shoulder, and he does get a turn. Right now, him staring at Lillian, who does a bend down and express, looking at the page Deku is writing on. What is he writing? Oh, it's Sylvan. You're writing in Sylvan? Yeah. Well, I probably should be writing this in common if I'm going to be using this there. So Theodore doesn't want them to know I know their language. It's probably for the best. Her saying in Sylvan that they do like to believe they have the upper hand. And when Deku does that turn back to her, he does just say in the same language. They kind of tend to think so as well. The stories portray them as bad, almost like the devils. And she does get a nod, or expressing. It's still not that bad. It could use more improvement. Do you think that you can help me? I'm more of a vocal teacher, Izuku. That's how I learned. I cannot write the language. I see. Okay. This is a game of politics, however. And I am very good at that. Navigating a court and navigating nobles is something that I have learned a lot about. Her going to sit down. And Deku, he does go to slide a bit back and go to turn, expressing, bring his hands up and talking to her in Elvish for some reason. Before he has to stop himself and then go to switch to English, if not common, to express. He's getting a few things mixed up in here. Just calm down. Now, I'll try and pick apart your deal if it seems like there's a flaw I can use. Him nodding his head. And when the two do start to talk, there is where the princess does a smile. Since this, it is a little fun. It allows her to think about the mind of a Fae and how to get into it, how to easily herself not get drawn into their games. Now then, with that being said, Deku and her, they do continue the conversation until later in the day the two do depart. And Deku, he does take the potion one last time before he needs to get up in the morning. And the court, yeah, they are a bit more worried about the group right now. As the moment Deku's to open his door after getting dressed, there is Pyra. There's Oliver, there's Lillian, and there's Indra. And there's also a royal guard who does stand there. A man in armor and a what the this is confusing him. Deku's staring at the lion-headed man. It's he's not dreaming. It's real. And the man has to stare at Deku before he does express. Right now, he needs to follow him. This has become a matter of strange importance. Okay. Him going to leave. And the group, they do go to walk down the corridor. Right now, going to turn right, and Deku, he does hear something. Before they do a pass by a window, he has a turn to stop. Someone bring their hand up and informing him they might want to go. And Deku does hear someone screaming in the courtyard, angry about something. And that voice does seem a little familiar. Him thinking that it might be Erodos, though it might also be, maybe not. Was it someone else he does know? Now, the group, they are led outside, right now piling into a carriage, as someone, they do go to get into the front, and the horseless carriage does begin to move. Right now, them leaving the castle as they do head down the road. And some people, they do just stare at them. Deku, right now, going through his book and rewriting things in common on a fresh page, trying to think about how to handle everything. He feels ready, but he's not sure if he is. And right now, the group, they do go to travel, heading to a place where things aren't exactly the same, where things are a little off. Things are just tilted. And Deku, he does go to recognize an area nearby. They do go to follow it. In this path, it seems no way. Them going to walk to an area where the water does make its way up towards a hill. And there is a tree that does stand there large, vibrant, and beautiful. Deku's staring at it. And it's here. He remembers fixing the branches here. It's odd. Huh. It took him time, but the tree looks like it came back stronger. Is it taller? And did he feed it too much magic? This one of the things Deku is worried about. He knows that magic is a strange energy. He knows it's capable of many wonderful and even chaotic things, beautiful and evil, light and dark things. Yet he does feel a little worried. He knows that a tree like Emsera's can grow to be mighty, but the idea that this thing can grow to be so large, it could potentially force the druids and dryads out of their land, if that's the case. And he really doesn't want to be responsible for that. Right now, this being a thought that does go through his head, as someone does come stepping out from behind the tree. And Deku, when he does get a look up, he does feel a strange sensation course through his amulet. Him bringing his hand up to touch it as a dryad does come stepping out. And everyone, they do get to see it. The creature going to bring its hand up and running it along the bark of the tree, expressing to the hero, "It is nice of him to return." And Deku does stare at the woman. She looks human, but she isn't. 2 arms, 2 legs, and she looks feminine, but her body's made of wood. And this does make Deku kind of surprised. He heard a voice last time, but he didn't see them. And the Dryad does express to him, "It is nice of him to return." However, they are aware of his business and what it does mean. They wish to go to the Feywild. He has saved their sacred tree. Her turning and pointing, expressing that the road does lie that direction. Follow the forest and be careful and wary. For when things do begin to turn, he'll notice it. Do not fear and do not fret. Time changes there. Time is different there. However, she does thank him, bowing her head as Deku does get a look at the flowers that do make up her hair. They're like rose petals, but they're flowing from red to pink. And this, it does make Deku stare a little, him smiling a bit, before asking if there's any more aid they might need in the future. He doesn't understand the importance of this tree, but he's glad he could help. And the woman does go to nod slightly, before Theodore is going to bring his hand up on Deku's shoulder and tell him, "This tree is sacred for a reason. It used to be a Trent. However, it relocated to the Feywild." What? "A creature of good, however, of its own accord. It used to be one that would help. However, that's the problem. It didn't always see eye to eye with people. It had its own agenda, but it wasn't malicious. This tree is said to exist on the same plane as another one in its place. That creature is unique for one reason. Its soul exists in both. Right now, we believe it resides in the Feywild." That's incredible. The Dryad informing Theodore, he would be correct of their legends. However, it has not returned in centuries. When it does, they believe that their guardian will help bestow knowledge on them. And keeping this tree safe, their sacred idol, it is important to them. And Deku, he can understand now why they gave him the amulet. Well, the bracelet. But it does make a bit more sense. Right now, him turning his head, and the Dryad, it does go to turn, making its way back behind the tree and going to wait. It will wait for them to leave before it does itself disappear into the forest. This is their home, and they do wish to see these visitors out of it first, even though one of them may have unknowingly helped them and taken out a powerful threat. Now, this does still intrigue Deku. The horseless carriage rolling through the area and moving a little quickly since they are on a bit more of a schedule. And that Deku, he does try to think about. Right now, him sitting down in between Oliver and Pyra, as across from him there is Indra, and then there is Lillian. All of them are inside the carriage. Sir Theodore is presumably right above them. And then there are the guards who do drive this horseless carriage. It's a lot like a car. So he's just assuming they'll trade off in shifts? He's thinking about how that would work though. He's not going to try and get in the mechanics of that himself, but if their carriage has gone through the same upgrades, then it would be good to learn how to drive. This making a small smile creep into Deku's expression, as there is where Pyra does point outside, him turning and going to look out there. Before he does get to see the nature roll by, feeling the air get a little denser, and something does feel off. Him turning to his left to look out the other window. And Indra herself does begin to feel this, having a nervous tick where she has to somewhat mess with her fingers. And Deku, he does watch her stare out the window as well. Before he has to ask if anyone else can feel that, Indra gonna turn, looking up at Deku and saying seriously, she does. It feels perplexing. It does. It's like, no, that doesn't make sense. What are you guys feeling? Magic. It's getting denser. This on their minds. And Izuku, he does sit there for a second, closing his eyes and trying to focus. Since this, it could be bad. Right now, he needs to keep his own guard up. And for a minute, Deku, he does think about it, trying to read the area. As all of a sudden, that strange, small increase, it does going to make him have a mental recoil. Him jerking up straight as he does go to look out the window again. And this time, there is where he does go to see a purple sky, along with the darkness above. And he does panic for a second, before his mind does get to catch itself on these strong emotions, trying to tell him where he is. He knew to expect this. He just didn't expect the shift to be so suddenly, so fast. And everyone in the carriage, they do try to gain their own mental bearings. Oliver, he does have a bit more mental fortitude. However, he himself does feel a little quote-unquote carsick from that turn. And Indra herself does sit there trying to gain her bearing. Lillian, she doesn't feel too bad. However, coming to the Feywild again is a little disorienting. And Pyra, she does clutch strongly to Deku's arm. Him taking a breath and centering his mind. Though he does get to feel it, bringing up one of his hands and seeing how magic does begin to pull around it. He's not even casting a spell, yet he can feel this strange power around him. It's everywhere. This land is so full of it that it's potent. And this, it does make Deku feel strange. Him hearing his system inform him of something, where he's to look down and go to open his inventory, seeing about how he's unlocked certain things he can now do. He can increase more of his own physical abilities, but whenever he does go to the magical page, he does see a few icons blinking. Him going to turn his head and go to find the one that's flashing, before he is informed of his level up and the newest achievement he's gotten. He is completing a challenge. He has gone to the Feywild, and he's earned a lot of experience because of this. Deku seeing some new challenges pop up, along with even seeing one that does glow with magic. This intriguing him. Before he does go to click on the achievement or the daily challenge and see what it is. And it does tell him. Right now, the land is full of magic, and they wish for him to slay magical creatures of the Feywild. This intriguing him. However, it also does inform him. Strong magic emotions must be involved, and that it doesn't make sense. Izuku staring at that and wondering what it means. It's weird. However, he does it back away from it. Before he's to go back over to his skill list and go to look a few things over, wondering if magical bonuses could increase faster here. If the Feywild is full of mana, full of magic, and strong emotional ties are a thing, strong connections, there's one skill he does have trouble leveling up. But if he's here, maybe he can boost it to level 6, level 7. Maybe his unique skill Spirit. If he stays here long enough, he can get to level 10. Find out more about it. Training with it has been getting easier, but he's focusing on that a bit more. His ice power is good. It's a lot better now. He knows more about what to do with it, how to handle it. Hell, it's his strongest magic. But if he can do the same things with Spirit, and this ability is stronger, better, maybe it's a good idea to keep that in mind. Anything he can do with one element, he can do with the other. And he may potentially be able to do with his own skill. Though, he needs to be careful. If he does try and focus on one ability too much, it could hurt the others. And that's the thing Deku isn't too happy about. Right now, him looking at the points he does have as a safety net, wondering if he should increase his magical power with ice, or try and make another element catch up. If he masters ice, he can move on, focus on Spirit, and then increase something else later. That is on his mind. And right now, there is where Aztoth does go to jump up from Deku's lap and go to turn. Him headbutting Deku a bit in the stomach as he does go to blink his eyes and look down. The dragon going to crawl across Pyra's lap and look out the window, turning back and letting out a sound. And Deku, he does get somewhat laugh. As the creature, it does get to go out. The door opening up as Deku does tell him to stay nearby. And the creature does understand. Now, after some time, they do go to arrive at the city. And when they do to see it, it's big. Way bigger than Granala. From what I can tell here, there's a palace in the distance. And Izuku does stare at it. The city as they approach is lit up. There's a large towering wall built. It's a city made of light. And that, it does surprise him. When they do go to approach it, they're stopped by guards. And among hearing who they are and seeing Sir Theodore, along with him even bowing his head in acknowledgement as to why they're here, it does mean a bit. They are allowed through. However, a man does get to stop them to aid them in their current travel. He'll be escorting them to the palace, and once that is done, he will take his leave. Now, people, they do stare at the carriage as it does pass along, and Deku himself, he does look out, seeing the light, seeing the architecture, seeing the people fly by. They're Fey. They look elvish, but they're not. Some are small, some have green skin, some have strange anatomy he hasn't seen before on the material plane. He's in a different dimension. And that thought is just now crossing his mind. He's come from his homeland of Japan to another world, and now he's literally on another plane of existence alongside that one. It's incredible. Though Izuku, he is trying to sense magic in the air. It's a little bit more difficult, but he can. There's something powerful at the palace, and when they do arrive, they do get to step out. Deku going to turn and help Pyra step out of the carriage, as there is Oliver who does step out, and Indra does step out as well. And Princess Lillian, she does get to step out. Her taking Deku's hand, it is going to offer her stepping down quickly as she does go to turn, expressing to Izuku in common that from this point forward they should call each other by titles. She is the princess. She is the dragon. He is the hero. Pyra is the ranger. And Oliver is the knight. Yeah, I've heard we'd have to do this. It's so that the Fae don't take our names. The Fae can be tricky. Deku turning to the dragon, who does go express with her arms crossed over her stomach. Right now, they're dealing with things she doesn't have much knowledge of. Her father, the dragon above her, he certainly does know a lot more. He's tight-lipped about the Fae, and he doesn't talk much about what the Arch-Fae is, though she can feel its presence here. A group of guards coming to walk up, and the mentor does go to express, bring up his hands. It looks like they've got their own party now. So, he's going to be around. He'll make sure things don't go poorly. He's here to monitor the situation in case something gets out of hand. And Deku does going to nod his head. As Theodore, he does go to talk to a man in the Sylvan tongue. Right now, the man responding back in that language, and Deku does get to somewhat stare at the two talking, feigning confusion at their words. And some people, they do stare at Deku. They have these looks on their faces he can't quite register. But then they do go to somewhat scowl seeing Pyra. The idea that an elf is stepping foot in the palace, it doesn't seem good to them. However, they will not voice their opinions, but their abhorrence to this has been registered. Now, with that being said, the group, they are led inside, and Deku, he does see a lot of things, but he is more surprised to see some of the servants walking around. They do look Sylvan, but they do look elvish. Their outfits are nice, fine, and they're made of materials that look similar to stuff he's seen from Japan. It's a bit odd, but they look more advanced with whatever techniques they might use here. And whenever they do to step into a room, Deku, he does get a look around, feeling the magical pressure around him, feeling the magic in this room. As whenever he does his step in, he does look up, seeing a woman who does stand there. She's taller than him, and her skin is a gray color, light gray. She does have horns on her head. Her hair is tied back. It's odd. She looks old, but she doesn't look aged. She doesn't look withered. She seems to have a appearance to her of youth, but her aura, the thing he can read off of her magic, she's powerful. It's almost like a void. The power, he can feel it flowing back into her. It's like with Alino, but he can register it. And that is what does make him a little bit more wary of her. That is the Arch-Fae. And whenever the group does get to stand there, people of the court are staring, looking at these people as the princess does step forwards. Her going to bow her head as Deku does follow suit, him bending at the waist and bringing his hands up, showing he does not carry a weapon as he does spread them apart, bowing forwards and expressing, he is the hero of Granala, the Winter Shogun, or the Dragon Slayer, depending on what title they wish to speak of him as. He's here to understand many things and help them with the current situation he's heard about. And the Arch-Fae, she does get to hear murmurs at her court. Deku going to stare straight at her as he can hear them muttering about the elf standing in front of them, along with the idea that a human is this powerful, is this rare. And when the Archfey does go to raise her hand, silencing the people in the room, she does go to step forwards once, asking Izuku, exactly what is he? I'm a hero. I was given the task by Ritus. He asked for my aid in helping this world. Not just the material plane, but I believe the entire planes that exist. I do not know the full story, but I have an understanding of what's going on here. And with your permission, I would like to help. Her bring her hand up, stopping Deku from trying to bow once more. And she does express. She does not mean that. She is sensing his magic, sensing many things about him. He is a first. And some people do mutter at that. Deku raising his head confused. Oh, what do you mean? You are unique. I've never seen something like you before. And I have lived for a long time, child. I do hope you know that. Allow me to introduce myself. I am Saveti, of the river and sky, queen of this land. I monitor the two courts, the Seelie and the Unseelie. I make sure that whatever they do does not come to blows and threaten this land. I understand. You're a ruler, and you're trying to do best for what your people are. Along with the land here? Yes, you do. Now, how much are you truly aware of? I'm aware that somebody of human nature, you believe, murdered one of your nobles. Yes, I am. And that is the problem. Someone poisoned one of my nobles. Right now, however, we are not aware as to who it was. I'm not aligned with either of these two courts. However, they serve me. And I wish to know who killed that man. I see. Yes. We will provide more information for you. However, I do wish to talk with you privately. I see. This being where the princess does intervene, expressing, right now they've been on a bit of a long journey. And, if it is alright, perhaps they can discuss issues tomorrow morning. She would like to know more about the situation as well. She is here on good faith to her kingdom. They would not send someone to deal with this who would not be someone they could potentially take as a hostage. She is aware that the Fae do have dealings of their own, and this is a measure of good faith. You really think the king sending his granddaughter here would not cause some trouble? Had you sent soldiers, perhaps I would have been less impressed. I've dealt with your family for a long time, child. Now, understand this. Whatever happens, you may be held accountable for. If I do find out that humans did disturb this peace, then there will be problems. However, if it was one of my people who did this, you will have my apologies. And the person being held captive will be released. However, until then, I would like to know more about this. You are all dismissed. Her bring her hand up as the doors do go to open, and Deku does see some servants rush into the room, them stepping in as he does get a turn, and the moment he does a stare at them, he does get to recognize one thing about them. For a second he thought the magic in the air was concealing their presence, but it wasn't. Those people aren't servants. They're not slaves either, they're constructs. They just look eerily, I guess, people-like. And that confusion can be seen on his face. Before Savetti does go to catch his attention again, expressing she wishes to study him. Hmm? I'm sorry? Your abilities. A human who could use multiple types of mana, along with what access you do currently have. You've been blessed by deities above. I have. I see. Your power does seem interesting. Theodore, go to express. Perhaps that can all happen later. If she does wish to strike a deal with the hero, then she can do that some other time. Right now, however, they've dealt with enough bureaucracy for the while. So, make this a social call at some other point. They have business to conduct. The woman gonna turn her head and scowl at Theodore, her eyes narrowing as Deku does see the man do one thing he's never seen. He does shrink back a little bit in a little bit of fear and submission. He doesn't want her attention focused on him. And that does tell Deku everything he needs to know about this woman. Her power must be great, greater than Theodore's. And that thought does terrify him just a smidge. If he does make a deal with a Fae, let alone an Archfey, there could be consequences. And that he should keep in mind. However, right now, there is where people are allowed to leave. The woman informing Deku that when everything is said and done, they may talk and make a deal, if he does desire something. Be it power, immortality, or even magic. She may grant him some items that may aid him on his journey. And people of the court do stare at Deku. And the idea of immortality, it's interesting. Some people stare at him not thinking that he's going to say anything, then that he might jump at the chance. But Deku does tell the woman. He doesn't know about that. That sounds a little too crazy for him. And some people, they do hear him say this, as he does quickly leave the room with the others, and the court does begin to talk. However, someone does go to walk past Deku. Another Eldian who does go to step into the room and just stare at him strangely. The same look now he does recognize as curiosity, awe, and wonderment. He's something that they've never seen. A Swiss Army knife of magic. And now that he does understand that, he gets why the Fae might start to look at him. Maybe keep the other heroes under wraps for right now. If they learn about them, they'll try to reach out. And that can get a lot of attention that they don't want. Though, that could be ironic. Just don't tell them the others' names and I'll be fine. They'll be fine? Right. This is going through his head. As right now Deku, he does sit there on his new bed in a room that's been cleaned up. It's fancy. It's nice. And from what he can tell, it doesn't feel malicious. He's trying to detect the magic inside the room. And the palace, it's got a ward around it. There's something here that is preventing other things from coming here. Be it evil spirits or, well, dark things. He's not sure. The information he is still need to look through. Though right now, after feeling his emotions rushing through him with an intensity, he does feel exhausted. Trying to keep them in check, keep them in line? Yeah. He's going to sit down for a minute and gain his bearing. And whenever he does hear a knock on his door, he does go to open it. And Pyra does rush in, pulling him into a hug. Right now, him wrapping them around her and trying to calm her down. Since this it might be a lot for everybody at the moment. Now, with that being said, I do hope you guys enjoyed, and have an amazing day. I'll catch you guys in the next part.